All right. Good morning, Doug. We're back with viewer questions, actually, questions from members of the file. If you have questions for Doug, I encourage you to join the file. We always prioritize those questions and attempt to answer them here every Friday. So, Doug, first question is, what's your take on Carl Jung?
Carl Jung. Okay. So one of the two big names in psychotherapy, the other being Sigmund Freud. Uh, I can't claim any scholarship on either one of them other than a layman's familiarity. But I've got to say that I'm much more friendly towards Jungian ideas than Freudian ideas. Um, and Jung basically came up with these ideas of archetypes, warrior, wise man. He's got a dozen or 50 of them, or however many. And I think the Meyer-Briggs test is kind of a spin-off of those Jungian archetypes. I'm not sure that's actually the case, but it kind of seems like that to me. A little bit of research would prove or disprove that statement on my part. Yeah, so I'm friendly towards Jung, and I don't think the only thing that Freud brought to the party was his talk therapy, but a lot of his concepts, I guess I'm a Jungian. So
Yeah. Yeah. Of the two, I think that's it's easy for me too, because Freud is just basically about sexual problems with your parents. It seems like a lot of it is related to sex and your parents.
yeah, that's right. And he really founded this whole trade of psychiatry, which is basically where people that aren't smart enough or skillful enough to be regular doctors go, where all they do is sit there and have other people pay them to listen to their problems and reflect it off their own psychologies, which are very often bent. So, that's a score in the negative column for Freud as well, the way
Yeah.
psychiatry's evolved.
And it seems like because a friend of mine told me years ago he got a lot out of psychotherapy, and so and he's a healthy person. He's not, but he said he got a lot out of it. And he was going 4 days a week for over a year. And I said, well, why not? I'll try it. And I did it for about 3 weeks, and it's crazy because the person sits in a chair next to you. I don't know if you've ever done it, but a person sits in a chair next to you and doesn't say anything the entire time. You're just supposed to talk, say the things that come to your mind. And it's very strange. It's very strange.
Yeah, it is. And the solution the psychiatrists typically come up with today are all kinds of, insanely dangerous psychoactive drugs to alter your mental state. So they're quite dangerous. Psychiatrists in the US are becoming as dangerous as psychiatrists in the Soviet Union, I think.
Yeah, well, yeah, especially now that it seems like that they are the way laws have changed, that they're kind of obligated to the state and to some degree now that like it's like the patient client relationship can be broken apparently if you say certain things during that session, from as I understand it.
Yes, almost all the professions have become indirect employees of the state as the state's become bigger and more powerful over the years. So further evidence of the coming collapse of Western civilization, or ongoing collapse, not coming collapse, I should say.
Yeah, we're watching it happen in real time. That's for sure.
Yeah, kind of
Okay.
entertaining.
All right. Next question. So, if you had to stay in Canada or a similar place like Australia or New Zealand during the next few years for whatever reason, what would be your plan to preserve whatever is possible and stay as safe as possible?
Well, I've lived in Canada for years, and I lived in New Zealand for years. And I guess I could say I lived in Australia because I stayed in Noosa, which is a beach resort, uh, long enough to rent a house. So pretty familiar with all three places, actually. Uh, and all three of them are going in bad direction or have gone in bad directions over recent years. So what would I do if I was going to go to those places, assuming you can find a way to support yourself? Uh, I would tend to stay out of the big cities for sure. And if I went to New Zealand, I used to live in uh, close to Auckland in the Polo area. Uh, and that was convenient for playing polo. But if I moved to New Zealand now, I would definitely go to the South Island, not the North Island, for all kinds of reasons. Well, I'd go to Queenstown actually, or Arrowtown, but they're very expensive. They're like the Southern Hemisphere's answer to Aspen. So,
Oh,
yeah, but there's other places. And in Australia, because I lived in Noosa, and it's a beach resort, a surfing resort, and it's nice. Uh, that might be it. But such a, that's a continent. So there's all kinds of places you could go. I spent time in Tasmania. I rather liked it, although it's a little bit out of the mainstream of anything. And where would I go in Canada? I think in Canada, I'd probably go to one of the coasts. Probably go to Newfoundland or Nova Scotia or someplace on the Atlantic coast or British. But Alberta's the freest province in Canada, although none of them are beacons of liberty today. But stay out of the big cities.
stay out of big cities. Okay. All right. Next question is, what do you think the future? What do you think the future Ben-Gurion Canal has to do with all that's happening in Gaza, or does it have anything to do with it?
Well, this is a project, I don't know anything about it really. Everybody's kind of heard about it. It's to join the Mediterranean to the Red Sea through Israeli territory. So you don't have to use the Suez Canal. It's an alternative to the Suez Canal. And the idea was to, because it's going through some mountainous, not flat territory, like the Suez Canal is basically flat, simple, easy. But so they were going to use nuclear bombs to do the excavation.
Really?
Yeah, and it would have taken several hundred of them to, break up the dirt. Nothing wrong with that. I think the concept is pretty good. I don't think you don't really have to worry about the radioactivity. That's really a bugaboo that doesn't exist. But, you know, with things being so unstable, Israel, and they're surrounded by the Muslim world that have a bee in their bonnet about hating Israel and hating Jews, I don't think I'd make the investment, quite frankly.
Yeah, and I've seen some stuff online mentioning this, where they're suggesting that part of the reason of they want to clear out Gaza so that because it's in the way of this canal, but this canal's been on the drawing board since for at least 50 or 60 years, right? So
Yeah,
it's not new.
I think economically, I don't know what the economics of it would actually be after you factor in capital costs and God knows what to build it. So if you rule out the political problems, which are gigantic, would it be economic or not? Uh, I don't know. The
Hmm.
Suez Canal is a big money earner for the Egyptians. I think the revenues for the Suez Canal are something like $10 billion a year. That's a lot of money.
Hmm.
Uh, don't know what
Because
the costs are, but not that great, I think.
it's like something over 20% of global trade, I think I saw goes through the Suez Canal currently. It's a big number.
Yeah, it probably an economic idea, but the politics, I think, real problem.
Okay. All right. So we talked last time about how the European kingmakers decided or came to an agreement to roll out this European digital wallet and ID. And so the question is, what are your thoughts on how you can avoid it? How do you resist it in the EU?
I'd move out of the EU. I think living in the EU is no longer a good idea, quite frankly. And if you live there, you basically got to do what you're told. So I don't know how you avoid it if you live in the EU.
I think you got to get out if you want to avoid it.
Pretty much, I think so.
Yeah, and once they have the digital ID, digital wallet, obviously central bank digital currency is the obvious next step with that. So yeah, everything will be under control.
Yes.
He had a second part to his question is, what are your thoughts on the current crypto rally? Is it sustainable given the macros, or is it trapping liquidity in hopes of an ETF approval? Talking about Bitcoin in particular.
Yeah, because BlackRock is filing for an ETF for Bitcoin, and they won't be the only one, I presume, after they get their approval. And that'll result in, a lot more buying of Bitcoin. It's a good thing for Bitcoin. And then there's a halving coming up pretty soon, which put more upward pressure on it. And I got to say, I'm a believer in Bitcoin as a finally, after thousands of years, possible viable alternative to gold. Well, we'll see. Yeah, I think so. So I don't know about all these altcoins, frankly. I really don't.
No, I think Nick Gianbruno has really helped persuade me that just ignore all the rest of the stuff and just focus on Bitcoin. There might be speculative opportunities in the other ones, but it's complicated and there's a lot of problems with all of them.
Yeah. No, and Nick makes a very tight, realistic, logical argument. But on the other hand, Marco Wutzer, who's also quite expert and a sound guy, says that some of these things have great value. I don't know, frankly.
Yeah, and there's the benefit of the privacy coins and stuff like that too. But I just feel, it's the everything other than Bitcoin is there's so many things in there that seem like they're scams or something. So you have to really go to experts who really understand the area, like Marco, who monitors it very closely, understands the technology to invest in those areas, I think. But Bitcoin's a kind of a no-brainer, I think, to have some. Like if you're a wealthy person and you don't have one Bitcoin, I think you're making a mistake. Just to have one seems like a no-brainer, maybe a lot.
Yeah, I completely agree. Everybody ought to own one or more Bitcoins. Yeah. And as far as the altcoins are concerned, Marco makes these arguments. I don't understand them very well, frankly. I'm not a computer jock. So
there's opportunity potentially. Okay.
I hate my computer.
Well, I appreciate you looking into it for us today. All right. So, Doug, are failed societies different from failed states? He says, it seems the Jacobins of the Western civilization aren't interested in having a failed state as much as they are in fomenting a failed society.
That's a hell of an interesting question, actually, because for one thing, we're talking about the difference between the state and the society, two different things. And Americans in particular, but everybody really, conflates the government and the society. But actually, you should look at the government, the state, as being a dead hand on society, a parasite on society, is different from society, an element of it, much the way General Motors or Apple is part of society, but it's not society. So I'm very anti-state, very pro-society. And the problem with the state in this context is there's an apparatus of the state. There is no apparatus per se of society. There's apparatus of the state. It's got all these employees that you pay taxes for, and it's got police and secret services and FBI's and things like that. So the state is very different. It's not our friend. It's not we the people, in other words.
Hmm.
So it's a very good question. And look at a failed society. I guess that was the question: failed societies, failed states. Haiti is a good example of a failed society and a failed state, both. But I'd like to see a failed state, but a healthy society. That would be a good idea.
Yeah, it does seem like when you use a term as a state being a parasite on society, uh, kind of thinking about his question, it seems like the focus is much more on a failed society but not a failed state, and the state being the parasite sucking the life out of the society. Don't you
Yeah, I
think?
can't wait to see what happens in Argentina. How many days from now? Is it 9 days from now? Let's see, the
Yep.
19th. Yeah.
Yep.
So that, there's a failed state or a failing state or an obvious parasite state and a society that's still getting along. But are the people in society so stupid that they're going to once again vote for the Argentine state? Well, it's a good juxtaposition between the two things. There and Haiti, both.
Right. That's a good example. Right. That is a failed state, but the society still functions. Things still work because the society is still together. That's a good point.
Yeah, it doesn't work in Haiti. Aid and income from overseas Haitians that are supporting their people back in Haiti stopped. Jesus, it would be much more of a catastrophe than it is now because they can't
Hard to
produce
imagine.
anything in Haiti. I don't even know if they still make Barbancourt rum in Haiti, frankly. You should look that up.
So I did see an article on Bloomberg today that I'll send you that talks about it was the most positive article I've seen so far in the mainstream media about Millet, and it's written talking about the agricultural sector and how they interview some farmers who all strongly support Millet. This farmer they interview says, "I support Millet, and I don't know anyone who doesn't support Millet because most states support the ag, they subsidize the ag, but it's exactly the opposite in Argentina, where it's a giant parasite on that whole sector. And so, anyway, I'll share the article with you because I was very positive toward Millet actually, and it really articulates the benefit of getting the state out of the way.
Yeah, but on the other hand, the I understand that all of the 19 provincial governors in Argentina, and Argentina is much more federalized than the US. The governors in Argentina are much more important than governors in the US. They all want things to stay as they are because they're all stealing a lot. And they don't want to upset their power base and the unions and the newspapers. They all hate Malay. They're all slopping at the public trough. They don't want to see things upset. So, yeah, this is going to be really interesting what happens.
Even in Salta, the governor there in Salta still wants Massa in, huh?
Well, of course, our partner in Estancia de Cafajate is the ex-governor, and being governor treated him very, very well, I've got to say. But when I get back down there, I'd like to ask him what he says about it, but I'm not there. Can't ask him. Haven't seen him for a long time. But I don't know who the governor of Salta is now, frankly.
Okay. All right. Next question. Do you think the Jewish influence in the West has peaked and exasperated with the continuing acceleration of third world migration?
Well, there's a hot potato question. You're not supposed to, whoever wrote that in, you're not supposed to ask any question that has to do with the Jews.
No.
I think it was Dave Chappelle, who's he's the best comedian since George Carlin, or maybe he's as good or better than George Carlin. I don't know. He's great. But I saw a skit that he had recently is that there are two words they're not supposed to ever put together: the and Jews. Uh,
Oh, by the way, last time from our last video where we discussed Israel, we had some people that were immediately condemning us for me specifically for suggesting that Israel killed some of its own people when the Hamas attacked with Apache helicopters. Even though I read the source in Hebrew,
yeah.
I've translated it, then it's true. But and also we got accused of being Zionists, so we got both.
Oh, this always happens. That's right. You put those two words together, and you're either a new Hitler or a Zionist, or one or the other. Uh, well, my opinion on this is that this whole thing in Israel is eventually going to end very badly for the Jews. It's just demographics. So Yasser Arafat was right. And migration, how's that going to, migration, how's that going to affect, as Hitler used to say, the Jewish problem.
The Jewish question, wasn't it?
What's that?
The Jewish question.
The Jewish question. Yeah, I guess it was. Yeah, it was der Judenfrage. It was in German. Yeah, you're quite correct. Gee, I don't know. It's just that if I was a Jew and I was living in Israel, and especially if I was younger, I would say, this is not a particularly propitious place to be, because the Pakistanis have nuclear weapons and they're Muslims, and they can pass them around surreptitiously to other Muslim countries that feel, well, if Israel's got reputedly 200 nuclear weapons, oh, hell, we ought to have them too. So a bunch of Muslim countries get them, and these things can get out of control. You're dealing with crazy people on both sides.
I think so. Yeah, and it seems, and there's the question of how people seem to be wanting, the religious people seem to want Armageddon to happen. They think it's a good thing and can't wait for it. So I think those people help push people along toward the most dangerous course.
Yeah, these Abrahamic religions have a strain running through them where they all want to kind of immanentize the eschaton so they can meet Jesus or meet Allah or meet, well, I don't know if Jews want to meet Yahweh or not. That's a little bit unclear to me, but
very unclear. I really like to understand that for sure, because it's very confusing to me.
Yeah, I don't understand.
But you can't ask. You can't ask.
No, and you better not ask, because people think you're, a Jew hater or else a Zionist. So
exactly, one way or the other, no doubt. Okay, all right. What are your thoughts on agorism? Agorism? I don't know how you pronounce that. But what's your thoughts on that and how it evolved over time? Do you see a future where that becomes widespread? And that's essentially volunteerism, right? Where it's not a non-coercive society.
I'm all for agorism. I guess I'd pronounce it agorism. It was, that term, I think, was popularized by a guy named Sam Konkin, who's dead now. And it's funny. It's got to have to. Konkin was, I got to know him somewhat, and he was what you call a professional libertarian. And I've got to say, I despise professional libertarians. He was penniless, of course. Libertarians love money in theory, but they never have any of it, ever, almost ever. And
like a Marxist.
Like a Marxist. It's exactly analogous. And I remember I set up for Konkin a $2,500 grant from a foundation. And he was, he could never pay his rent or even buy food or anything. So he asked me, well, so I did him a favor. I got him this grant. And he says, well, when's it coming in? When's it coming in? I need the money now. I said, I don't know, Sam. Like, it's supposed to be like November. So, November comes and he says, where's the money? Where's the money? I says, hey, I'm not in charge of this. And he says, well, you said, and I need the money, and you're dishonest for having, like, on and on. I said, fuck it. So I sent him a personal check for $2,500, and I said, here, when the grant comes in, which it will, you send me the money back. You need the money now. Here it is. Just go away. Bother me. And of course, typical of professional libertarians, he wasn't honest either. He was penniless and not honest. I never got my $2,500 back or the $2,500 that the foundation gave him. So that's the background of Agorism, was founded by Sam Conkin. So, good idea, but, what did Jesus say? He said, by their fruits shall you know them. So the fruits are
100%.
good. The tree was rotten. So that's my opinion. I hate
Good ideas.
professional libertarians or professional Marxists or professional wokesters or any of that stuff.
That's amazing. I love that you knew that guy. That's amazing. That's why you're here, Doug. That's why we need this. That's why we need you to do these things.
Yeah, you don't want these things to be lost in the mists of history, which they will be anyway. Still, it's kind of amusing.
Keep it going a little longer.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, this weekend is the anniversary of the end of the First World War. Quote, the war to end all wars, they said. The UK establishment and media is currently drumming up support for a new Middle East war on the back of state remembrance events. Is there any hope that the masses will develop resistance to the psychological manipulation methods used by those they perceive as having authority over them?
I don't think so. I don't think so, because this is interesting. We were talking about Freud and Jung earlier, and I've read some of their stuff, and I've read a lot of stuff by L. Ron Hubbard, who has a very bad reputation because he founded the Church of Scientology, which everybody's supposed to hate. I don't like the Church of Scientology personally. I really don't, for all kinds of reasons. That it's like talking about the Jew. You talk about
it is. It's dangerous also.
In one way, I don't know it. I don't care. But he developed what I think is a very interesting way of looking at what constitutes the mind, the human mind, and it goes on from there. And he had to turn it into a church, and then the church, to hell with all kinds of churches, as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, he was a brilliant guy. I got a lot of respect for Hubbard, and one of his basic things was that in your mind you have it's called the reactive mind. It's like a stupid computer in your mind that records bad things that happen to you, and I think maybe bad things you do. It's like permanently in your mind. And he developed a process which is like psychotherapy for you yourself, using an e-meter, so you could gauge your psychological reactions. Where something scares you, the little needle bounces in different ways and so forth. So anyway, his view of it, which maybe is a correct view, who knows, when it comes to the mind, nobody understands the mind, as far as I can tell, really, seriously, is that, you have this kind of stupid computer that takes all the bad things that have happened to you, and bad things you've done too, I think. I'm not sure what he said about that. And you react. When there's a repetition of it, and you act irrationally, and this accounts for mass stupidity. This reactive mind. It's not the same as the subconscious mind. It's not the same as the collective unconscious mind, which is Jungian, and subconscious mind is Freudian. This It's a different concept. So I guess the answer to the question is no. I don't think there's much hope, frankly.
Well, I think you add to, maybe the bad things that you've happened to you, perhaps the bad things you've done, but also with the innovation of Freud's nephew, Bernays, and propaganda, it's also the bad things you see. They show you. So we see we see certain things about events like 9/11, and then that is, can be used then against people to respond in the way the state would like. So I think, going to war it's not that hard to get people riled up to go to war. You see a lot of Israelis, a lot of Jews got riled up and ready to go and, carpet bomb Gaza if necessary, because their reactive mind was collectively triggered by, especially news of and certain footage and stories about 40 babies being decapitated. Those things just trigger this reactive mind in people. So the combination of these psychological tools is dangerous.
That's a good point. And it's happened with the whole Muslim world when they see what's happening to members of the Ummah, other Muslims, by the archenemy, the Jews. So yeah, I'm not too terribly hopeful.
I agree. Okay. This one, I hadn't seen this before, but the guy he asks, have you seen the launch of Bill Gates' latest project this week? It's called 50 in 5. It says 11 countries have signed up so far. 3 are wealthy and developed, Norway, Singapore, and Estonia. And 8 others are very badly deprived or war-torn, Guatemala, Sierra Leone, Togo, Senegal, Ethiopia, Moldova, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh. Have you seen this program? This is new to me.
Yeah, it's new to me too, but that's interesting. So Bill Gates has come up with another cockamamie scheme to improve the world by digitizing it. And I'm sure it has to do, since it's talking about countries, public-private partnerships. He loves that kind of stuff. And getting everybody on computer, probably. And yeah. So, I despise Bill Gates and everything he stands for. I can't think of anything good that he's done. Well, he's founded Microsoft. I guess that was a good thing. But what an awful human being.
The tagline on their website says, implementing digital public infrastructure safely and inclusively.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's a couple keywords: safely and inclusively, and public. That's another one.
It talks about digital payments, digital IDs, and data exchange is kind of the anchor in it, apparently.
Oh, that sounds wonderful.
Sounds like a digital panopticon.
Yeah. And I guess people will slavishly support it stupidly. Pox on Bill Gates and everything he does, frankly. And Melinda Gates, too, who seems like she may even be worse than Bill. And I guess she has half of his fortune.
She does, yeah. And, she was, so, he has all these Epstein ties, and, only when they got divorced did she even mention anything that she was unhappy with, that there was this, that, she knew he was associating with him. Of course, when she's married, she doesn't say anything. So I think if you see something bad happening and you believe it's bad happening, you don't ever bother to say anything about it, then you're culpable. You're involved in it too, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, I think so. So, yeah,
one of the things you've said,
or anything like that.
You've said that you thought, people asked where you thought this digital stuff might come first, and especially central bank digital currency. And one of the things you suggested probably in the Nordics, because it's already a lot of it's, you can't pay with cash in a lot of these places already now. It's a high trust society, very digitally connected. And so it's interesting that Norway and Estonia are 2 of the 3 developed countries that are on that list to lead this program.
Yeah, and then you mentioned a bunch of third world. I think all those countries that you mentioned would qualify as shitholes. So
I would put them in that category.
I don't know what's going on. we'll have to see what it. But anybody that's in a position to throw hundreds of millions of dollars at some project, you can bribe government officials and do all kinds of interesting things to work your will. And
Well, we saw what he did with the WHO, right?
yeah, yeah, exactly. And y- it's dissipating capital. He's got all this money in foundations and whatever, so that fortunately it's tax free. That's good, a good thing. But the thing is that it's not being used to create more wealth. It's being is it's being dissipated on stupid and just actually destructive ideas.
Well, yeah, and but he makes lots of investments in these foundations too. Like he invested in Pfizer and Moderna early, sold at the top. So it seems like whatever capital he's dissipating, he's reaccumulating through the schemes he's involved with as well. So
Yeah, and incidentally, this is I'm kind of talking out of school because this is only something for our file members. I didn't mention this to the file members because we don't do this often enough, but I'm short. Excuse me, I'm not short a bunch of Moderna. I'm long a bunch of puts on Moderna because I'm personally convinced it's going to go to zero or close to it. And it's been headed down. And as more information comes out about what a complete scam and how dangerous the vaccines are, so I'm short a whole bunch of, excuse me, long a whole bunch of puts on that.
which is basically the equivalent of being short on it, right?
Yeah, in long puts. So I'm long puts that mature in about a year out, which ought to be enough time for the thing to blow up. At least I hope so.
And you put that,
Could be.
when did you put the trade on?
About a month ago.
Okay. Yeah. Good timing.
Yeah, it could have been better. I could have top ticked it to buy the puts. That would have been better. But
It's down 32% this month though.
yeah, so it's working out okay. It's working out okay. But it's it's mainly to psychologically be right. I guess if it goes to zero, I could make a lot of money. If I'm short 100 contract. I keep thinking of being short the stock. I'm long 100 contracts, which is the equivalent of 10,000 shares. So generally with about a 50 strike price, 10,000 times 50 is 50. So I can make $500,000 if I'm right within the next year. Okay, that's good. I should have bought more. Anyway,
Well, that's awesome.
it's a moral victory. Let's say I like having a moral victory is almost as important as having a real victory, frankly.
Maybe more important in some cases.
Maybe, yeah. Yeah, I feel being short Moderna lets me feel like I'm out there slaying a dragon.
All right. Next question. Is there anything Doug regrets not having done in his life?
Mhm. Well, I love Frank Sinatra's music, and one of his two or three best songs is that one where I forget the name of it. Regrets, I have a few, but then again, too few to mention. What song was that?
Let me find out. Hold on, give me a second. Sorry, can't type right now.
What's the name of that song? That's not a very good year. It's a different song, or is it?
Sorry. I'm trying to use a GTP and it's not working for me right now. So maybe I should just go back to Google.
Yeah, trapped in the world of Google. I guess we all are.
Yeah, here we go. My Way.
It is my way.
It is.
All right. Okay. And I've thought about this in the past. This is not off the cuff. It's that the only things that we've all done stupid things that we regret. I can think of lots of, just stupid mistakes, not having thought things out or whatever. Yeah, plenty of those. But The only things I really regret are moral failings. To say, where I did the wrong thing and I actually knew I was doing the wrong thing. And I don't do that anymore. I've gotten better over the years, tried to improve my moral failings. I kept-
How do you how do you know when how did you know that they were that it was a moral error at the time that you made the decision?
Well, actually, a lot of it was intuitive before I even knew about two great laws. Do all that you say you're going to do. And if you don't, it's a moral failing. And don't aggress against other people or impinge, I guess the word Rick Mayberry uses, uh, on their property. So when you break, those are really intuitive, those laws to human beings. So it was going against those things was a moral failing.
Hmm.
And, I try not to have moral failings anymore because those are all you really regret. You regret, you know, buying when you should have sold. These kind of mistakes are made. But I think the only regrets you really carry with you are moral failings.
I think that's true. I feel the same way. Yeah. Okay.
So
Let's see.
maybe sure I'll still have some more, but because you got to live with these things, really trying to avoid it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that the COVID clarified that for me with just because the decisions that, there was pressure to make decisions or not make decisions. And for me, I was just like, I don't want to do anything that I believe is that kind of undermines my own integrity. Like that's where I decided to draw the line, which is essentially the same thing you're saying. Anything that, like, going along with a lie, for instance, that to me felt like a moral failing. If you pretended that things were okay when they weren't, if me researching the vaccine in advance, before it came out, and so taking it or considering it, or to me seemed like going along with a lie, even though it would allow you to travel and do all this other stuff. I could have fooled myself into thinking, oh, it probably isn't that bad, but that seemed like that would be a moral failing too.
Yeah, I agree. Breaking your own integrity. And this thing about lying, because on the one hand, I feel, well, you don't owe anybody the truth. It depends on who you are, whether you owe them the truth. So, but yeah, I don't like to lie, but I think, yeah, maybe you should be lying can be a good thing if you're dealing with somebody that, it's, it can be complex.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Just always telling the truth is not the cardinal virtue, but it's not doing anything that you would demean yourself. I think is the thing, that would degrade myself. That's the biggest thing I try and avoid.
Yeah, that's why my cardinal rule of living has become, instead of just those two great laws I mentioned, it's, like Aleister Crowley said, the whole of the law is do as thou wilt, but be prepared to accept the consequences. So you got to figure out what's the consequences of doing this, which gets you back to doing the right thing, I think,
Right.
generally, whatever that would be.
I have to say, every time you mention Aleister Crowley, it's like mentioning the Jews. I mean, that gets people riled up.
Oh, yeah, yeah. People go wild with that too. That's right. Yeah, they'll say, oh, you're a devil worshiper and so forth.
Clearly, are you Mason? Admit it. Are you? You must
Yeah,
be.
Mason, right. I think I only know one Mason, and he's an old friend of mine who I've been out of touch with for years, who joined the Masons as a young guy, because he said, these people are really wealthy and there's a lot of money, and maybe I should find out, you know. And he says, I think the only requirement is, well, I don't really know because I know nothing about the Masons. He says, you have to believe in a higher power. And it's, yeah, I can higher power. Yeah, lots of higher powers. And I'll have to get back to him and find out how the Mason thing is going.
Yeah, find out what degree he is. I think that's the key. Because allegedly, once you get
Which
to
is
what degree he is,
the
it's like,
degree. Ah, yes,
yeah,
of course.
because the apparently, from what I've been told, like the pleb level, doesn't really know the inner workings and how evil the Masons really are. But once you get up in the 30s, you start to find out.
Yeah, I'd like to know the truth, but I'm
I
not
would
sure how
too.
I could find it because if I talk to one of those high Masons, I wouldn't think they're going to tell me the truth, are they?
I don't think I tell you shit. I don't think that they'll admit that they're Masons unless they're forced somehow.
Yeah. Yeah, who knows? And how are they tied up with the Rothschilds? Are they?
Yeah, I I guess I'm not adept. I don't really understand all of the way these conspiracies weave together, so I have no idea.
I know. Maybe they're all just made up. Well, probably not, but you know, I don't know any Rothschilds. Although there is a Rothschilds bank in Zurich. I've been to that bank. Sure, that's. I'm
You're
sure that's
incriminating yourself again.
someplace. Huh?
You're
Pardon?
incriminating.
Hmm?
You're incriminating yourself again.
I am. I didn't open an account with them, but I was invited to visit with them, and I don't think I passed the test because I don't have an account with them or any relationship with them. So they do exist.
Yeah. Okay. Uh, Next question. When does Doug see using a small local guy or gal lawyer as a good move, as opposed to using a big recognized name regional or global law firm? Uh, I guess when do you see that as an advantage, using a smaller local guy, lawyer, or a big firm?
Well, actually, I have a lot of familiarity with lawyers because in a past life, I was a insurance broker and I specialized in medical and disability insurance, both group and individual. And my clientele was almost exclusively Washington, D.C. law firms. So I knew lots and lots of law firms and lawyers in D.C., which is the epicenter of that's where the law industry lives. And get to know a lot of these guys that become lawyers. And of course, from my college, uh, in my college class, a lot of these people became lawyers. Uh, so I run into lots of lawyers and so forth. So my feeling on it is this: is stay the hell away from the legal system as much as you possibly can. But since it may be impossible because we live in such a litigious society, it's good to have a personal lawyer. Yeah, so how do you choose a personal lawyer? Who is in that series with William Shatner and who is his pal, the younger lawyer? Was that Spade? Was his name?
Think so. Yeah.
He also plays in The Blacklist, that actor.
Oh yeah, yeah. Spade.
Yeah.
Uh,
So that lawyer that was under Denny Crane in in Boston Legal, I guess it was, kind of
James Spader. It's James Spader.
James Spader, right? That's right. The character he played, kind of slips and slides. And you got that lawyer, Better Call Saul Goodman. You know, there's an advantage of having contacts with a lawyer like that. But what you really want for a lawyer is a stand-up guy, does the right thing, but a stand-up guy that knows how to. I've met so many lawyers, they think it's their job to show you how smart they are, all the reasons why something won't work legally. And whether they know it or not, they're working as employees of the state. I like a lawyer that is a stand up guy and shows you how to get things done, as opposed to, oh, why we can't do it because you might get in trouble. So I hate most lawyers. Shakespeare was right. First, we got to kill all the lawyers. But you got to have. So I guess the answer to the question is, you know, find that individual lawyer. He's probably going to be a small firm or a sole practitioner as opposed to working for some giant law firm where he's got to take orders and do what he's told from the top. That's my guess.
What about how connected the lawyer is? Does that matter? When you talk about like a small local person, I guess if you're trying to do something in Paraguay, for instance, would you go to a big recognized law firm there, or does it? I mean, I
Yeah.
guess because there are international firms, right? So let's say I was trying to get legal work done in Paraguay, for instance. Would I want a internationally recognized firm, or would I want a local guy there?
Yeah, that's a question. I think it's how well connected the individual person is still, not necessarily being. I don't like these big law firms because they have to take orders from people on the top. So you're looking for the individual person who has ethics that suit you and is personally well connected. So he can make the calls as an individual, not as a member of some giant octopus firm. It's
Okay.
kind of the way I see it.
Yeah, if they're well connected, they get their call taken. Not just be from a well recognized firm is it going to get them in the door, but they get in the door if they're connected. Makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, yeah, choose your lawyer well, actually. You don't want, like Trump, I think, he, seems like all the people he surrounded himself with seem like horrible people that betray him. So he's got bad judgment.
Yeah, but there's that one lawyer who's trying to disbar in California for basically writing an opinion about the vote recount stuff. Do you see that?
No, I haven't actually.
Yeah, so this guy seems like he just was a stand-up guy and did the right thing, and the state of California is trying to disbar him for offering a legal opinion.
God, it's amazing. This is lawfare where you sue somebody and make their lives miserable and cost them huge amounts of money because the legal system is so corrupt it lets you do it. It's disgusting.
Yeah, it's John Eastman is the name of the attorney.
Hmm.
Yeah, that they're trying to disbar.
Well, maybe if Trump is elected, which I think is a long shot personally. But if he is, that's the kind of guy he wants instead of the idiots that he's surrounded himself with.
100%. Yeah. Okay, next question. Doug is asking to both of us, what's our take on paid entrepreneurship memberships or coaches? He says, Doug has talked about the events he's personally set up in the Zoom group that you both partake in, but were there chapters of development where it made sense to pay to have access to be around other entrepreneurs?
I don't know. You listen. I think you know much more about this than I do. What do you think?
I think that most people, most in the business coaching or business entrepreneur coaching stuff are, their business is coaching. And so not how to run businesses well. So there's a great risk that a lot of the people that are offered out there up for availability with programs, they don't have a lot to offer. So there's a risk there. But there is truth that some rooms, especially early in your career, you have to pay to be in one way or another, whether it's you actually, write a check to be part of a club, or it's, you pay in other ways by adding value somehow to keep people in it so that you get invited into the room. If you don't get invited in the room, where that you want to be in, then sometimes you have to pay one way or another.
That makes perfectly good sense to me. And especially early in your career, you want to establish as many contacts and reach out as you can. Yeah, makes I think that makes
Like,
good sense.
like 15, I don't know, maybe longer ago than that, I guess I paid to be part of a mastermind group, they called it. And I said, because as an entrepreneur, I didn't even know any peers. I just didn't know any of them. So I paid to be in this group. And I met several friends there that are still my friends today, that those friendships are incredibly valuable. I did business with one of them for a long time later. And, that proved to be very, very valuable for me. So there are instances where it definitely can work. Did I personally get anything out of the coaching or anything? No, not at all. Not at all. But I got a lot out of the other people that were in the room. A lot.
Yeah. So a lot of these people that form these groups? Are they like professional consultants?
The people
Or
that
no?
run it, yeah, the people who do a lot of the coaching, they get especially in the last crypto boom, I saw actually Max, my son, sent to me several things he was seeing on YouTube with these guys who, they made some money in crypto on Pancake Coin or something like that. And then they were out there coaching on being an entrepreneur. They turned that into business to be a coach. And these people they got lucky. Great. Nothing wrong with luck. But then they think they're a genius because they made a couple $1,000,000 and now they're going to coach. And so there's a great risk of those rules. I think there's charlatans that are out there. There are a lot of, but, eh, and those are the professional people that just do coaching, just do this kind of thing. But there definitely are some good ones out there that have good systems that are really useful.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. Certainly, when you're starting out and you want to, you don't know anybody, you don't know anything. So, yeah, reach out as long as it doesn't cost you too much to, or you don't get involved in kind of a cult. These people can start.
It can. They do turn to that. Okay. Let's see. What's your take on the pro-gun movements going on in Latin America? And they shared this article from America's Quarterly, which I'll leave in the notes below. Did you take a look at that, or do you know anything about the pro-gun movement?
Oh, well, I'm ultra pro gun. In fact, one of my favorite phrases is from The Matrix, where Neo says to, what was his girlfriend's name? Valentine? Or anyway, where this is the best scene in that movie, or one of the best scenes. Starts out with, you can Google it and you'll love it. Or YouTube it. I should say YouTube it. It's guns, lots of guns.
I remember that scene. And the comes down, there's just like aisles of it that show up, right?
Exactly. And then they go through security.
Right.
And that was go through TSA. It was wonderful. So yeah, guns, lots of guns. I'm all for it. Love guns. There was one of the earlier movies that I saw in my life actually was with the Rat Pack, Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. And Sammy was a gun, and he sang a song. And it was called Robin and the Seven Hoods, as I recall. And Sammy sang a paying to guns. Wish I could remember the tune, probably look it up. So yeah, I've always been a big fan of guns and the gun movement in South America. Everybody ought to have a gun. And I was a big fan of Bolsonaro. And too bad the Lula the criminal is, trying to do the same thing to Bolsonaro as the Democrats are trying to do to Trump.
Yeah, Bolsonaro was very pro-gun, encouraged everyone to buy a gun, and there were a lot of street crime there, and they had if you were it seemed as though if you were involved in that, it was okay, for people to run you over with their car. The vigilante justice was encouraged during the time he was there.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope, and of course, they're now trying to make it illegal for him to run for office again. It's very much analogous to what they're doing to Trump.
Because they had their own January 6th type event there too.
Yeah, they did. That's right. Yeah, exactly. Well, as far as guns are concerned, I think Uruguay and Argentina are the two most gun-friendly countries in Latin America, I think. And Brazil too, even with Lula. But maybe Argentina will become real gun-friendly if Milei is elected and is allowed to do anything, which is another open question.
Just to follow up with his girlfriend's name was Persephone.
No,
No?
no, it began with a V.
Oh wait, maybe that's the second one. Sorry, that's okay. Sorry, I'll look it up. We'll go on. I'll look back in a
Yeah.
second. So,
Anyway,
okay.
people go to that YouTube thing. Go to YouTube and put in guns, lots of guns. You'll see that great scene. And the other one after that I liked where the helicopter has the minigun.
Yeah.
And I love those miniguns.
Her name is Trinity. I
Trinity,
should have
exactly. Yes.
I feel like an idiot. Okay. All right. So let's see. Next question is do you think it's too late for Bitcoin? Because it was really low not long ago, and now it's up to over $36,000 at this point. So he says, do you see a scenario that could ever bring its price back in half or more so one could get in or acquire more at a reasonable price?
Yeah, who knows the answer to that question? The arguments that the Bitcoin believers make are that as it competes with gold, its market cap is going to go way up. But what's its market cap now? Is it about how many hundreds of billions of dollars for the?
Let me see. I got to get better at Googling here. Market cap. Looks, no, I think the total crypto market is 1.4 trillion and Bitcoin is 51% of that. So yeah, 750 billion dollars.
Yeah, and I guess it's about what 90% mined and 10% or something's left to be mined. But who knows how many of those have been permanently lost?
I'm responsible for losing more than I would care to remember. So yeah.
So I think it's going higher. That's my view.
I think so. And actually Bitcoin right now is over 37,000 actually. So we had a VIP call for File 3 weeks ago. And on that call, I told people that Bitcoin was just broken 30 at the time. I think it was on like the 23rd or so of October. And I told people at the start of the call, I said, I really feel like if you don't own any yet, that you should, basically the same advice I gave here. If you're wealthy and you don't have at least one, I think you're making a big mistake. So, and right at this best time I ever had on a market call, because it was up like 5% that day and it's continued to go up since then. So,
Yep, makes a lot of sense to me. And I'm not a computer jock or anything like that. But yep, I think it's going to work.
okay. So don't wait for it to go back down. I wouldn't personally. That's my advice. Not that I offer financial advice. I'm an idiot. I don't know anything. I'm one of the people who lost a lot of Bitcoin. So, okay. Last question, Doug, is what are your favorite guns? I know you've owned many, 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 many guns.
Many guns.
What are your favorites?
Well, I'm a pistol fan. They're more practical in many ways than rifles. There's a time and a place for everything, including shotguns, absolutely. But favorite pistol, it would be a reworked, customized 1911 Colt. And actually, the really well reworked ones are in 40 S&W, not 45 caliber Colt, because you can stack more bullets because it's 40 caliber as opposed to 45, and the ballistics are better actually on the 40 S&W. So the 1911, I'm a huge fan of the 1911, and I got to say I like Glocks. Things I don't like about Glocks, I don't like that stupid trigger safety, which is really not a safety at all. Frankly, I don't understand how they can call it a safety. But that said, I like the fact they're plastic and lightweight, and I have a couple of them. I have the two. I have other Glocks, but I have two Glocks. That is the smallest one. I forget the model number in 40 S&W, and the smallest one in 9mm. Pretty small and pretty light. So I like pistols that you can carry easily, which a 45, a 1911.
It's tough.
A little bit on the big and heavy side, although I like the Commander model of the 1911. So
and when you say,
question from my point of view, I don't know if you have any particular.
As far as pistol, I actually like the Springfield XD series personally as a pistol, which is basically it's very Glock like. But I just found personally, and I think you have to experiment with a lot of these to really know. I was more accurate in firing that than any other handgun I've ever owned. Actually,
Hmm.
I'd say anything of the XD series was great. So I had a compact one, carry one, that I used to carry around everywhere when I lived in Colorado. And, I had a large, and it was a 45. And then I had it in the 9 millimeter variant as well. And it was great. I think those are great guns.
There's a lot of advances that are being made in pistols that, since I'm out of the subculture at this point, I'm missing out on. But I think there's a lot of good stuff being manufactured that I'm a little bit behind the power curve on.
Yeah. Me too. We don't have the variety here in Uruguay that we, have in the US where you can get everything and try everything out. Honestly, that's one of the, you can get them, but you can't, it's not the same variety here.
Yeah, I don't think you can get anything that's bigger than 9 millimeter to start with.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, what I have is 9 millimeters here.
Yeah. So one of the few disadvantages of Uruguay, other than it being a costly place to live, most expensive country in Latin America, for sure. Uh, Probably even more expensive than the US, I think.
Yeah, on some things it definitely is. And a lot of that, especially in the last couple of years, is because the Uruguayan peso is strengthened compared to the dollar, whereas most global currencies have lost value to the dollar. The Uruguayan peso has actually gained. So that makes it even more expensive.
Really surprising. South American currency would beat out the dollar.
It's shocking. It's shocking. Okay. Well, I think we'll leave it there for today, Doug. Thank you very much. We'll be back next week.
Great. Thanks, Matt. Have a good weekend.
Yeah,
And to
you too.
everybody out there in listener land.
All right. Thank you.